Can I pipe in on this real quick? On this thing? It's me.
Sure.
This whole stay together, for the kids thing. Kids are not stupid. Okay? That's the thing about parents and about adults. They try to underestimate kids. Kids are not fucking stupid. They see and they know everything. They hear everything. They know when their parents are fucking in their beds, okay? I know I did. I could wake up and, 2 o'clock in the morning and hear the waterbed sloshing. I mean, that's how old I am. I had a waterbed parents. Remember waterbeds? Yeah. But don't stay together because of the kids. No, because they know when you guys fight, they know when you guys are being fake. And you know what? That's not good psychologically for a child to know that you don't give love to your spouse. You don't give love to the person you're supposed to love, okay? The person that you conceived with to bring them in the world with. And all of a sudden you don't, and then you're just like acting like fucking roommates? Are you kidding me? You think a kid doesn't realize that? Stop it.
So I'll address kind of your arguments here. I've heard them a million times from feminists.
And if it's because of child support payments, well, you know what? Guess what? You're going to pay fucking child support whether you like it or not.
So I'll address everything you just said. I've heard this a million times from feminists, but
I'm not a feminist. I don't like feminism, and that's why where we are today with this bullshit gender bullshit because of feminism.
Do you remember how I didn't cut you off at all and let you finish your entire thing before I said anything? Maybe you can do me the same courtesy.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why you're thanking yourself and then welcoming yourself, but anyway, in any case, back to this. So
sorry, not sorry.
Okay, so anyway, the reason that these sorts of arguments don't hold up is because, first of all, children in their tender years don't really remember shit.
Right, they don't. That's called their formative years.
Yeah, so here's the thing. When do they need the formulation of mom and dad the most?
Always, because always kids know when parents are being loving to each other.
Can you tell me what does the word most mean? Do you know what that word means? So when do they need it most is the question I asked you. Not do they always need it, but what? Are you
going to give me a fucking statistic on most, really? I mean, a kid, when they see their parents together, and when they see their parents loving together,
hang on. Can you stop freaking out and just calm down for a second so I can ask the question? If you
I'm not freaking out. I'm just answering the goddamn question.
So anyway, if you had to pick a set of years in which were the most important years for a child, which years would you put those in?
0 to 5, formative years.
Right, exactly, the formative years. There we go. So those would be the.
So if you don't show your wife or she don't show you love in those formative years, that kid is not going to know what love is. Either if you show your kid love, they are not.
Yeah, so I mean, how come all of the research on this is completely against you? That even if it's the case for abuse, especially for
what research, Spock?
Yeah, I'm
Dr. Spock.
Here's
Dr. fucking Spock.
Yeah, here's what you can find. I understand that it's difficult for you because this morning was maybe the first time in weeks that you had to get off of your back. But if you could just
no.
seconds, we can actually dive in.
I ain't had no fucking dick in about 2.5 years, and that's not even the reason. I don't even want it, man.
Yeah. So anyway, the thing is like. If we look at the stats, yes, this is indeed the case that it's cohabitation.
Epitome of my fucking misery is what y'all are.
Where you find the abuse. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you just don't want to have a conversation. You just want to freak out.
Can I ask a question? When you say that it's always better that the parents stay together, as long as there's no abuse or anything like that, Actually, that's not what I said. Okay.
I didn't say it's always
clarify
better.
What you.
What did I? Hang on. So I get straw man constantly, and the reason is because like ladies I was just talking to, they can't be quiet long enough to listen to what I'm saying. So even though
I listen to you,
even though I will listen to everything they just said when I'm giving a response, they just can't even chill out for 5 seconds to even hear what I'm saying. So that's what happens is people straw man me constantly. I didn't actually say in all cases. I wouldn't say that because that would be a monolith. I'm just saying that generally this is
Generally,
true.
okay.
So most cases, we could say at least in most cases, this is true.
Generally, better than.
And there's that most thing that you were talking about again.
Okay, well, hold on. I want to make a point. So better
Yeah,
than.
you remember how I used that word in context so it actually made sense?
Better than what? Better than divorce across the board? Better than a child living in two different homes? What?
Well, the conditional of divorce most often leads to cohabitation between you and somebody who's not the parent of your child. And it's in the cohabitation where you see the largest forms of abuse, either from single mothers or from their partners. You rarely see this type of abuse inside of homes where you have the biological father and the biological mother. The abuse rates drastically decrease almost across the board, even if the parents report that they're not particularly happy in that marriage.
Would you say that's the same, that translates also to like having a stepchild where you have one non-parent and one parent, and then also a child that is of the marriage?
So I'm a stepfather myself. So again, it's not monolithic, but it is the case, generally speaking, that you're going to see a whole hell of a lot more abuse of your children from step-parents than you are from their biological parents. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Every stat you'd ever look at would reaffirm that that's the case. But cohabitation is where it's the most dangerous. And cohabitation, even for the unaliving of men, when they unalive themselves, those rates skyrocket during cohabitation as well. Far less likely even than if you're divorced than if you're cohabitating to unalive yourself. So almost all of these, so if divorce generally leads to cohabitation, which means you're living with a person without marrying them, generally leads to these kind of wildly bad outcomes for people, then it would seem that keeping marriages intact would be a better idea for society, or at least
some of them have good outcomes. Some blended families, some of them have good outcomes. A lot of, there's a presumption here that divorce leads to cohabitation in abusive households. There are a lot of divorces that result in two happy homes.
No, there's not. Well, here's the thing. There are cases where that is true, and I wouldn't dispute that. Again, I'm not putting things in a monolith,
Okay.
But generally speaking, it is not actually good for the children to come from broken homes. Most children from broken homes have way worse outcomes than children who are not in broken homes. And if children are raised in cohabitation homes, they have way worse outcomes. In fact, you can look at things like, this one blew my mind. If you have two parents who are abusive to their kids, and then the state comes in and removes those children from the abusive household, they're actually far, far more likely to die in state custody than if you had left them in the abusive home.
Well, yeah, because they've just been ripped away from their biological parents.
Well, right. You see how divorce rips you away from your biological parents.
Well, it depends on the
That's what
custody
happens.
arrangement.
Exactly.
Actually,
Exactly. Like you're saying, it depends on the
custody arrangement.
exactly.
But
No,
you're
it doesn't depend.
presuming
If your mommy and daddy don't live with you anymore, right? You're ripped away from one of them or the other of them at any given time. So if you're with mom for 2 weeks and then you're with dad for 2 weeks, or you're with them every other week, right? You're missing time with one of them. Necessarily. It's a necessary condition of divorce. You're ripped away from your parents. Necessary condition. There's no way around it. For all cases, every single case, unless you were to have some bizarre case where the mom and dad divorce and then stay in the same home for the purpose of kids, that's happened before, and those kids even seem to have better outcomes, which is interesting.
I do have to move. Oh, sorry.
Like ultimately,
I don't think so,
if the
no.
condition
Still Pickles donated
Sorry,
$200. Dear Granny, why are you so aggressive? This toxic femininity is very dangerous.
Quick response. Do you want to respond to that?
A granny? I'm not a fucking granny, dude. Got a 15-year-old. Who's a fucking granny around here? Excuse
sorry.
you.
Sorry, Andrew. I thought you were.
fucking
Didn't mean to
granny
cut you
around
off
here.
there, Andrew.
Grandma.
Do you want to finish your point, but then we'll move it on?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Hey, stop,
so often
stop.
happens.
Sorry.
What so often happens is the sum all categorization, which is incorrect, and most people argue from this, which is just silly, right? It's like, if you say generally speaking, it is the case that the sun will be shining tomorrow in Santa Barbara. I am correct that that is true, but you could still have a sunrise in Santa Barbara and not see it because it's an overcast day, right? It's like, I wouldn't put it at anything in a monolith that way. But we can still look at outcomes, general outcomes of society, and everything policy-wise is a give or take. You're taking from this group, and this group is going to be disproportionately affected. That's politics 101. There's no way to placate everybody, but we still know exactly what's good for the social adjustment of a society. Like that's not even in question. We have 2,000 years of history to look at to know what are social goods inside of society and what aren't.
All right, we're going to move it to, Julie, we'll come back to some of your other notes in a little bit, but going here to Jazz. So, Jazz, we had a bit of an extensive back and forth when you initially had asked to be on the show. Let me get that pulled up here in just a moment. There's quite a bit. Okay, sorry, one sec. Scrolling all the way up. Oh my God, how many notes do I have? Okay. Actually, one thing before we get into that, I was asking everybody to raise their hands before. Quick question for you, Jazz. We won't linger on it long. You're a feminist, but you raised your hand for almost every single one. When it came to men should pay for first dates, you raised your hand. Men should be providers. Men should be providers. Men should open car doors. Men should be chivalrous. Men should observe the sidewalk rule. How do you reconcile being a feminist and your description of this is how we got kind of sidetracked. We weren't really talking about equal rights, but you were making the argument that, well, societally, in terms of